Back on SportsLine here on News Channel 5 Plus. Steve Lehman along with 24/7 Sports Travis Haney. You watch much of the Titans game, Week 17, especially in this case. Man, did it lose some luster. We thought we basically were going to have a playoff game, possibly get flexed to prime time, have the atmosphere that we've all been longing for here in Nashville for an NFL game for quite some time. And instead, we have a Houston team that has serious quarterback issues and a Titans team that, I guess, proved a point for whatever that's worth.
9-7 is going to make you feel better. It's a winning season. You got above 500, but you went 2-4 against this division, and you just beat the team that's going to represent the division in the playoffs. So it almost makes you feel worse in a weird way. It hurts your draft standing ever so slightly. I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag. I mean, but everybody knew that after the Jacksonville game, the luster, as you said, had come off the game, and win or lose, it was not going to feel very good for the Titans coming out of Sunday.
It was a disappointing atmosphere, a little over half full probably.
Weather was terrible.
Weather wasn't good. All of that plays into the factor here. I think
New Year's Day. That's
several people probably struggled to get out of bed, and not just because of the weather. I think it was important for them to win, though, in this sense. One, it gives them a winning record, and for this franchise, you go back 5 years to get to that point. And two, as you mentioned, it's a division win. And that is the reason this team is not in the playoffs. They went 9-7 with 7 wins, 7-3 record against non-AFC South teams. They beat 5 playoff teams. But when they were in the division, they go 2-4, and that's with the win on Sunday. I think it was really important. It was 5 straight losses and 8 of 9 against the Texans. I thought for that reason it was really important for them, psychologically, moving into the offseason, to put Jacksonville behind them and get that win.
To me, it's the one psychological thing that stands out most over the course of a 16-game schedule is the 2 Colts losses. It's not even the Jags game to me, because you're already kind of out of sorts. They've got this unique situation with the new coach coming in and interim staff. Then Mariota gets hurt in the middle of the game. To me, it's the 2 Colts games you had in hand. You had the game in the fourth quarter both times, and it just seemed like all those losses to Indianapolis over the history of this franchise, it just felt like a ghost. It felt like a monkey on their back.
It was a block that they could not get over. And if you win any of those games, talking to Brian Orakpo the other day, he said, look, I mean, go back to game 1, Minnesota, the turnovers. Oakland, we're down at the 2-yard line before a penalty pushes us back. Either of the Colts games. The San Diego game with all the turnovers. Texans game in the fourth quarter, you give up the punt return to Will Fuller for a touchdown. Obviously, the Jacksonville game. They were in all of the games they lost, and if you change 1 or 2 plays, this team is in the playoffs. And to me, that's the thing that's most frustrating. And talking to Mike Mularkey today, you could tell he understands that there was a missed chance. This was his 5th year as an NFL head coach. He's never been to the playoffs yet. He says it pains him every time he has to watch other teams in the playoffs and know he's not playing. And Travis, to me, this was a huge missed opportunity for the Titans. The progress is there. This team is much better. John Robinson, Mike Mularkey have this team headed in the right direction, and I think with Marcus Mariota at quarterback, they could be good for quite some time to come. But you never know what's ahead. You will never have the same team again. It will be different next year. Marcus Mariota has to come back from a nasty broken leg next year. Will he be 100%? Will he be the exact same guy and be able to take his game to the next level? We don't know that yet. What we know is this year, the Titans were the best team in this division. And if they could have played that out and gotten into the playoffs, you're hosting the Oakland Raiders on Saturday afternoon on Wild Card Weekend with no Derek Carr and probably not Matt McGloin at this point. It looks like you'd be facing Connor Cook, who had never started an NFL game until now in the playoffs. I don't even care if Mariota still broke his leg. Even with Matt Castle, I think you'd feel pretty good that you have a shot to win that game. Then you probably go become sacrificial lambs in New England. But what a moment for the franchise and what a huge building block for the team to, one, just get into the playoffs and win the division, but two, a real decent chance that you win a game in the playoffs, get to the Final Eight, and get to take on the Patriots. To me, that's a huge step that they could have and probably should have taken this season. And instead, because they couldn't figure out the division issues, they did it. And that's a lost opportunity.
You already feel like they're ahead of schedule. You never saw wins like, again, as we sat here in August, September, we weren't sketching out Green Bay and at Kansas City and Denver, even at Detroit, wins like that. It didn't seem fathomable, really, that this Titans roster would be able to come together the way that it did. But I'm with you. I think you look as an illustration, you look at a Carolina Panthers team that was undefeated most of last season, played in the Super Bowl, and looked hapless this year. Surely all those Panthers fans felt like, well, this is just the start of something. I know we lost Josh Norman to Washington, but Cam Newton's back and Kelvin Benjamin's back. We didn't even have him last year. And this was a team that was never, ever in it whatsoever. And then look on the flip side, Atlanta looks like a franchise that's in disarray. They can't block for Matt Ryan. Maybe Matt Ryan's kind of on the way downhill in his career, over the peak of his career in the prime. And yet the Falcons have the best offense in the NFL. And if they won the Super Bowl this year, I don't think anyone would blink, or at least if they made it, if they represented the NFC. So I think your point about how fast things can change in this league, especially when your quarterback is coming back from an injury as serious as Marcus is dealing with, nothing is guaranteed. You had a chance. The division was there for the taking. You didn't take it.
It's a league of parity. And we saw that by the fact that the Titans were able to turn it around this year. And while it took them a long time, it doesn't always take people a long time. And if you look around the league, there's real questions in Houston about whatever they're going to do at quarterback moving forward. Heck, Bill O'Brien may decide he doesn't even want to be there next year. But you look at Indianapolis, they've got their quarterback. If they can find a few pieces to put around him in better places than they already have, that's a team that you're always going to have to be reckoned with. I think that's
the team that everyone's looking at and thinking, if they can get their GM coach situation figured out, they're going to be better. And it's kind of like a ticking clock for, if you're Houston, even Jacksonville to some extent. That's why they make another coaching change. But here in Nashville in particular, it feels like a ticking clock to leverage that opportunity while Indy's a little bit down. And yet, to this point, no decision-making about the way that they're running their front office.
The Titans have the best plan. The Colts, some people would maybe still argue, have the best quarterback and luck if they can put the right stuff around him. What Houston does at quarterback will be fascinating because the defense is loaded. And Jacksonville, what does a new coach do with Blake Bortles? That will be a fascinating question as well. Back to the phones we go. Let's go to David. David, good evening. You're next up here on SportsLine.
Yeah, good evening, guys. One can also argue that the core of the Titans team has not improved. And one reason for that is Murray and Henry came in this season. What if Murray and Henry were in this team last season? Don't you think that they would have had a winning season? Because this winning season of this year was strictly because of Murray and Henry, not because of the core of the Titans team who played the previous season.
Yeah, I don't know, David. Here's the thing. They changed over a lot, and DeMarco Murray was awesome. He led the AFC in rushing. He was absolutely fantastic. Everything they wanted and then some after they got him from Philadelphia. But Marcus Mariota was great. 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. This defense put up 40 sacks. They've got problems in the secondary that they're going to have to address. But they had 40 sacks. They were second in the NFL against the rush. What you don't have last year, even if you have Murray and Henry last year, is you don't have a coach at the beginning of the year in Ken Wisenhunt who had the mindset that he wanted to run the football. That is what Mike Mularkey brought here. He brought smash mouth to this team. And at the end of the year, you're third in the NFL rushing. You're second against the run. This team won in the trenches. That is a huge departure from what they've been in the past.
But it also underlines having a GM that works in concert with a coach in that plan.
Yep.
And to get Jack Conklin in the first round, that absolutely, David, deserves to be credited. He was fantastic. I thought when they traded up to get him, I wasn't sure if he could be that guy. Yeah, they were right. He was that guy, and putting him and bookending the line with Lewan made Lewan better. And according to Pro Football Focus, they had 2 of the top 5 tackles in the whole league. So you add that, even something as subtle, I thought it was a really good move at the time because I had watched him in Miami. Rashard Matthews, that was a fantastic move. So I think there's a lot more subtlety to this team than just, well, they made a nice pick with Henry and they made a great move to get DeMarco Murray. Yeah, that was the backbone of what they wanted to do. But other pieces around it made the offense go.
Some really key veterans in there, too, in the sense that Ben Jones really anchored that offensive line up front at center. Even a guy like Rashad Johnson, who ended up at the end of the season playing a little bit less than 50% of the snaps, but he is a key veteran leader in that locker room and in the secondary. Just having guys like that were Mike Mularkey, John Robinson guys, tough, physical, team-first guys, to me made all the difference in implementing the type of team they wanted to have. Let's try and sneak in another phone call here. Let's go to Mike. Mike, good evening.
Good evening, guys. How are y'all? Hey, I've got a few questions to ask. My first question is, do you think we could ever have a playoff game at the Titan Stadium? And my other question is, like as good as Tennessee done, do you think we could ever have another major big bowl besides the Music Bowl besides that? And that's okay. But I'm just dreaming bigger for Tennessee. And my other question is, do you ever think Butch Jones will coach in the NFL? And I hang up. Thanks for your time and keep up the good job.
I'll answer the last one. No. Butch Jones is not an NFL coach in my mind. I think his personality, the fact that he basically gets it done off of recruiting, I think lends him to be a college football coach. And the other question, in terms of bowl games, and certainly disagree with me if you feel, but I think the only addition, we got the Music City Bowl, you've got the Liberty Bowl down in Memphis. The only other chance of a bowl game here to me would be if it's someday Nashville bids for the national championship game. And my guess is that doesn't happen until the stadium would be upgraded, possibly a roof on the stadium or something like that.
Well, again, the game this week is being played in Tampa, and so I think that's a really good model if you're Nashville. Tampa is not really a college football town, certainly not a college football stadium outside of the University of South Florida that isn't playing for a national championship anytime soon. So I think that is the kind of the pie in the sky design.
It's also the first time we've had in the playoff era a championship game outside, and obviously we've had several BCS championship games inside as well. So I think they like that security blanket when they can get it. Tampa, you feel a little bit better about the weather being good outside than Nashville or a more northern locale. But I think that's a factor.
You hear that some from the Big Ten crowd. Well, have the SEC have some of the warm weather teams play in colder
environments. Is that why they went 3-7 in the bowls?
Maybe this is a happy medium to get them in Nashville and kind of halfway in between whatever Florida and Minneapolis where the Super Bowl will be.
Well, we'll see. We're going to talk more college football playoff championship game, what Alabama does at that offensive coordinator position, what Clemson has to do to beat Bama, and we'll get more into Titans as well. Draft picks. We now know what they are. What do you do? What do you do with the draft picks the Titans have in the first round coming up? Stay tuned. More SportsLine on the way here on News Channel 5+.